So thank you for sticking around to the very end of the first ever Psych Sessions New Year's Extravaganza Podference 2020. You might find this as odd. I hope not. Our last speaker is me, Eric Landrum. And so first off, a couple of things. Garth completely offered to record this introduction. I said, no, thank you. I've got it. I'm happy to do it. And I offered to do this because I actually think that this wouldn't be a bad idea at face-to-face conferences, because I think we feel obligated to write introductions and get up and do that. We go to someone's website, we ask them for their CV, and the person giving the talk sits there uncomfortably listening to someone read off stuff off of their website, kind of like maybe what I did for the first 4 introductions. If you've been listening if you've been binge listening serially to the Podference for 2020. So this gives me a chance to actually say some thank yous and to say some preparatory remarks before you listen to my address that I gave in 2019. I would not have been able to give this address if it weren't for the work of Regan A.R. Gurung at Oregon State University. He was the nominator who successfully made the passage through the American Psychological Foundation process by which I won the Charles L. Brewer Distinguished Teaching of Psychology Award. And then I was invited to give this address at APA. So I wanted to take a moment and thank him for that. I want to take a moment to thank Garth Neufeld, who has been part of the entire process of Psych Sessions. I wanted to take a moment and thank Jane Hallinan, who has been an incredible mentor and supporter of everything I've done in my career. And actually, I want to take a moment and thank Jennifer Thompson, who's at the University of Maryland Global Campus. She's the program chair and a psychology collegiate professor there. And Jen did something really cool right before I gave this talk. It was originally delivered on August 10th, 2019 in Chicago, Illinois. She organized a very interesting sequence of events that were a delightful icebreaker. I don't remember who the first person was, but about 6 or 7 people. The first person might have been Jane. Came up and delivered a Diet Mountain Dew. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a Diet Mountain Dew freak, and it's in my veins. And at times I have an IV drip of Diet Mountain Dew. And someone walked up, it was kind of quiet, maybe 3 minutes before my talk, and just brought a cold one up and handed it and put it on the desk right in front of where I was about to talk. And I looked at it and I thanked them, and it was just really sweet. I mean, what a kind gesture. I mean, I already had one because I was about to give a talk. I didn't want to get dry mouth and all that. And they walked back, and that was really sweet. And then someone else walked up. It might have been Dana. It might have been Regan. I don't remember the exact cast of characters, and Jen was one of those, of course. And by the time it was all said and done, there were 6 or 7 little soldiers lined up, little green men, so to speak, or women, lined up to give their lives eventually as Diet Mountain Dew. And it was just a lovely, funny moment that Jen had orchestrated. And so thank you, Jen. I have pictures of it. People sent me pictures of it. It's one of my favorite moments. And so this last Psych Sessions Podference address is given by R. Eric Landrum from Boise State University. It was given at the 2019 American Psychological Association Convention. It was the American Psychological Foundation Charles L. Brewer Distinguished Teaching of Psychology Award address, originally delivered on August 10th, 2019 in Chicago, Illinois. And the title is 30 Years Teaching Psychology, Lessons Learnt and Those Not So Much. So thank you so much for staying with us. This is the last session of our Podference, and we look forward to hearing you again on January 1st, 2021. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate this, and I am fairly confident that I will stay hydrated. I appreciate the concerns with the high humidity and the number of steps that so many of you have been accumulating in this vast convention center. All right, here we go. I have a number of acknowledgments to start with, and I actually thought about that I could actually do this entire talk on acknowledgments over the past 30 years of my career. It would be incredibly rewarding to me, but I think a fairly boring address to give to others, but it would be quite rewarding to me. It really does take a village to nominate for an APF award. It takes 10 recommendation letters. So I'm really grateful to many of the people who are here in the room today who were letter writers for me, so that you can see all of the people that it took to write letters for the Brewer Award. I want to particularly thank my dear friend and collaborator, Regan A.R. Gurung. This was actually taken in Green Bay, Wisconsin, at a place called Titletown, USA. And I am very proud to say that I am wearing a Chicago Bears cap in Green Bay, Wisconsin, because that's what we do if we're a Bears fan. I also have other acknowledgments as well. I have to acknowledge a dear friend and mentor, Jane Hallinan. And that is not a picture taken accidentally. Although the room might not welcome me back, that picture is taken in front of Bill McKeechee, who in 1976 was president of the American Psychological Association. So we posed there on purpose. That was not an accidental background. I have other acknowledgments as well. I am blessed to have my family with me here today. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the dogs back at home. That's going to get me back on track. Yeah, it's a story. And so my son Scott is here from Boise. My wife Lisa is here from Boise. My daughter Allison is here from Los Angeles. And my sister Janet is here from St. Louis. And I'm so thrilled that they're here to be with me today because obviously, thank you. Family's a part of big success in our profession. I want to take a moment to thank Boise State University. You know, we tend to sometimes rip on our home institutions, our home campuses, and they've been nothing but supportive for 27 years. They actually found value in the type of research that I do, value in me working with undergraduate research assistants, and they valued SOTL before anyone else really knew what SOTL was. And so I really want to take a moment to appreciate the support that I've received from them for the past 27 years. Las Vegas. And this is a placeholder for me in this presentation because I just want to give a little bit of background. Two things here. This is going to be very much stream of consciousness. And so if you were expecting lots of citations and a handout with annotations at the end, I'm very sorry. There's a whole convention going on out there, and you'd find something really good going on. So I really apologize for that. This is really going to be more about reflections after 30 years so far. And so it's going to be a lot of stream of consciousness. And there's a really good idea, really good chance of more emotions, more than you've already seen. And so it's actually, I don't know how people found out about this. And Vegas will make bets about anything. It's actually truly obnoxious. These are called prop bets. I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but they'll do betting on anything. Someone sent me this link. I didn't think it would be live, so I grabbed screenshots. So I just want to show you this. This is one of these websites online, and actually I have a very fancy thing I can do here where I can highlight, I know, Brewer Award, that's what you get. And so you can go to more, on the front page they have hockey, baseball, basketball, football, whatever. But then there's more sports. And on the more sports link, there's APA convention. You can bet on stuff on the APA convention. Who knew? You hover on it, it turns blue, and look what they're betting on. Look at that. I can't believe that. What the hell? And I almost did it just 2 minutes ago. So betting on me to cry, it is a good bet. This is a very emotional thing for me. It's very emotional. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I am. Oh, by the way, this happened in Vegas as well. 3 years ago, this coming Saturday, I married my wife Lisa in Las Vegas, and that other guy was there too, which is actually kind of awkward at moments when a Las Vegas impersonator is there impersonating in Las Vegas. And so I can't talk about Las Vegas without talking about my wife Lisa. I have other acknowledgments as well. The American Psychological Foundation, the Society for Teaching of Psychology, and of course, Charles L. Brewer. And that's Garth with me too, and the Psych Sessions podcast has just been a blessing in so many ways. But that's Charles in the background in his hospital bed. And Garth and I had a chance to interview him 1 month before he passed away in February of 2018. And in some ways, he was a bit of a shell of himself, and in other ways, he was all there. And the veracity of the man was there. And if you get a chance, the podcast is free. It's available online, and you can have great fun listening to it. There was an amazing 2-hour tribute session yesterday here at APA, and I think some of those items are going to be available online. There's a 45-minute video of tributes that I hope will be posted online at some point. But we got a chance to talk to Charles, and I'll circle back to memories of Charles Brewer at the end of this talk. So lots of acknowledgments. I want to just take a moment to just list for you some of the previous recipients of the Charles L. Brewer Distinguished Teaching of Psychology Award, because it's really a who's who in our discipline of teachers of psychology. And it started in 1970 by APF, and the name did get changed, as you heard earlier in my introduction. And I list the people here who I know personally, I've interacted with personally, I've corresponded with by email, or I've had some interaction with. And so I've been blessed in my career to have this kind of access to the top teachers in our field. And so I'm really quite pleased and quite honored to be up here giving this talk today. In fact, if you would please, this is the benefit of having the microphone and the very fancy clicker. If you would please, would you stand, please, if you are a Charles L. Brewer Distinguished Teaching of Psychology Award recipient? Would you do that? Oh, wait, don't sit down. No, don't sit down. Thank you, Jane. Would you stand, please, if you have received any sort of teaching award at any time during your teaching career? Thank you. Thank you. I'm guessing you need to stay standing. And would you stand, please, if you have ever benefited from an outstanding teacher on any topic at some time in your life? Thank you. Now you can sit down. Piggybacking on that topic, what I'd like you to do with someone nearby, perhaps with someone that you don't know or don't know well, I'd like you to take a couple of minutes and reflect, a theme from Garth's talk earlier this morning, and reflect on what made that teacher outstanding to you. Try to think about specific examples of attitudes or behaviors that you can remember. And then just for a couple of minutes, take turns sharing those experiences, but only share what you're comfortable doing. So I'm going to stop here for a moment and let you just turn and spin and talk and just share. What was outstanding? What do you remember about that teacher? Grade school, high school, college, whatever it was. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry to interrupt those conversations. I've given enough talks in my time to know that in some cases that conversation may be the best thing that you get out of this talk. And so I'm glad you had the chance to meet somebody and hopefully have a meaningful conversation. So 2 things, and then there were 4, all right, in terms of hydration. All right, and then let's do back, middle, and front. We're not going to have time to report out. I know Susan Nolan's not here, but I'm thinking of her. She's not a fan of Think, Pair, Share. So let's just hear some samples of what you talked about. If someone in the back of the room, just one person might share a couple of characteristics or behaviors that you mentioned. Would someone from the back, just one person? Please. Yeah, please. Okay, so they need to make time to get to know their students in a virtual sense. Personal. Okay, thank you. Thank you. No, I thought you were talking about online. I thought, no, seriously, I thought, because that's actually harder when I teach an online class to get to know my students in an online setting. So I was translating that for myself. How about from the middle swath of the room, an observation that someone would be willing to share? Yeah, please.
Passion. Like that passion that they have of transferring that to the student.
That was something that you talked about. Awesome. And then someone from the front of the room, please. Jane.
Pepper and I had the same person who was going to teach you. That was humility.
Yeah. Okay. Think about dogs. Think about dogs. That's what did it for me. Thank you. Thank you all for doing that, because you knew I wasn't going to talk for 50 minutes straight. This is not part of the DNA, right? Thank you. So, lessons learned, and this is meant to be interactive, so if you want to play along with me, you're welcome to. Please don't sit there politely, because as you know, if you've seen me in someone else's talk, I don't do that either. So, if you're going to give, you got to take, and so this is how we play, right? It's meant to be interactive. So, lessons learned. I think the meta lesson for me is leverage whatever privilege that you have. I have a great deal of privilege that is unearned. What I mean by that, it's privilege by circumstance. I was born male, I was born white, I was born in the United States. I didn't earn any of that. It was given to me by circumstance. I have some privilege that I've earned, privilege of tenure. All right, so I have some earned, but I have a ton of it that was unearned. Whatever privilege you have, and our circumstances are likely different, I think the meta lesson for me of lessons learned is whatever privilege you have, you leverage it. And so when you've earned tenure, you take tenure out for a spin when you need to, and you benefit students on your campus or assistant professors or lecturers on your campus, and you protect them and you fight for them. Whether something's going on your campus, whether a group is being protested against, whether there are students who are having racial or ethnic slurs hurled at them. This happens on campuses. It happened on mine recently. All right? And so we have to take our leverage and use it. I think that's the lesson learned. That's the meta lesson for me. And I realize I have more privilege than most. And so whatever amount, I would encourage you, and you're going to have different amounts at different points in your career. So that's the lesson learned. Here's another lesson learned. I cannot differentiate between 13 shades of gray. I can't. I'm not good at it. You see those 13 different boxes? They're actually different shades of gray. They're technically different shades of gray. You know what? I just lied. They're not. They're the exact same shade of gray. I just lied my pants off. Sorry. I apologize. I lied. I can't tell the difference between C- and D+ work reliably. You know, like psychologists should. So I don't use that scale. Boise State allows me to use that scale. A lot of students would like me to use that scale. I don't use that scale. At the end of the semester, I use this scale. All right? I do use this scale. I don't care for this one either, quite honestly. As a grading rubric on almost every item that I grade in all my classes, upper division, lower division, all undergraduate, I use this scale. I am very confident that I can put 3 bins out there and put people's performance into 3 bins. By the way, at Boise State at least, when we evaluate professor performance based on their annual evaluation, it does not meet expectations, it meets expectations, and exceeds expectations. Progress towards tenure is making progress, not making progress. It's 2 bins. Isn't it interesting that we don't evaluate professors like that? We don't do that for professor performance or dean performance, provost performance. We don't even do that. So this is good enough for our colleagues, right? By the way, you can do whatever you want, and that's fine. I am not up here to tell you what to do. I'm talking about lessons learned for me. I really enjoy the T, so I'm just going to keep emphasizing that. Some people spill the tea, I pronounce the T. So lessons learned. All right. Stories are just about everything. They really are. And I know that's kind of hard to see. That's going to be a schematic of a classroom. Do you remember these chairs? You've seen these chairs before. You know, these movable desks on a linoleum floor. You can move them around. I'm going to go back to this picture. I've written about this story I'm about to tell you. I don't think I've ever told it publicly. My third year of teaching, I'm at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. I'm teaching a History and Systems of Psychology course. It's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It's a 1:30 in the afternoon course. All my colleagues are teaching their course. No one's canceling class the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So I'm going to teach my class the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I'm in a room about like that. The rectangle in the front is my desk that has a podium on it. By the way, I'm not using PowerPoint in 1991. I'm using a 3-ring binder that has my notes. I have an overhead projector because that's what we did. All right? That little other square over there, that is a radiator, all right, in the room. Okay? And so there was a student sitting there. I'm not going to tell you her name. And she didn't want to be there. This is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving break, 1:30 in the afternoon. And she was writing me. She was, don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Why are we having class? Why would other professors cancel class? And maybe they did outside of psychology. Maybe even some psych professors did that I didn't know about. But my chair didn't cancel class. Senior faculty members didn't cancel class in psych. You know, she was just gnawing at me, you know, as I was getting ready for class, just gnawing. Do you see what's going to happen? Are you predicting? Did you go to the Vegas website yet? Yeah, all right. And so she's just at me. And, you know, why are we having class? I mean, well, why do I have to stay here? I mean, it's the Wednesday before break. I want to go home. I want to leave. I want to drive early. I want to go. And just nagging at me. I finally said, okay, fine, you can go. No penalty. No attendance penalty. You can go. And so no one else got up, and so she didn't go. And I started into my lecture. I got out my notes, and why do we have to be here? Why do we, no, you can go. You can go. It's okay. No penalty. Please go. Go. It's okay. She wouldn't go, and she's just earworm, just. So here's what I did. I did this. That's my telestrator. I took her chair that was on linoleum, and I drug her in front of the class out into the hallway. And then I walked back and got her backpack and coat and put it out in the hallway and dropped it and closed the door and came back and taught class. Actually, no, not at all. It was an epic mistake. Maybe I was proud of myself at the time. I was in my third year of teaching. I was 29 years old, PhD. The class was flabbergasted like some of you were just then. I knew well enough not to touch her. I kept onto that rigid chair, drug her outside. I think she was just as shocked. Got back to the department. My department chair was waiting for me, Bob Velzy, a delightful man, a lovely man. May he rest in peace. And he said, Eric, come on into my office. And he told me what I needed to do. I needed to go back to class on Monday after Thanksgiving and apologize, and that's what I did. And she shut down the remaining 3 weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And she was done. She was not going to be a learner at all. And who can blame her? I had humiliated her. I had just humiliated her in front of her classmates. Why would she be a learner ever again? Makes for a good story, but it doesn't make for a good learning outcome. Another lesson learned. Stretch your skill set and take chances, just as we expect our students to do. I think we forget sometimes when we're asking our students to write in this weird APA format or learn SPSS or R, that something that we've been teaching for so long, that's so commonplace to us, how frightening or scary or different it is for them. And so I like it that I've gotten to this point in my career where I'll try something I've never done. And thank goodness Garth Neufeld has been so patient with me as we've launched this Psych Sessions podcast together. And so we've done things like have a live event with Jane Hallinan and Randy Smith where we had a live audience. We've never done that before. I didn't know anything about microphones or recording or editing or posting things to iTunes. And so I think we have to stretch our skill sets from time to time. If we don't do that, then we fail to realize what we're asking our students to do. I've read online sometimes that we should never be working harder than our students. I would call BS on that. I think we should always be working harder than our students, all right? Maybe it's a different type of hard, but I think we should always be working harder. Kind of related to that, I had an amazing opportunity through PsyChi as president to have essentially an international initiative called Help Me, with the effect of the central office staff and board of directors and chapters around the nation and around the world to have this idea of coordinating these events where we could promote people who are helping others and getting help and making that a strength. That's actually an effort that's still going. I would have never had that opportunity without PsyChi, and take some chances and stretch my skill set. I did it in a pretty visible way with a lot of people's help. A year ago here at APA, with a year-long series of planning with a lot of people's help. So this is the as you walked in, and this is the cover slide for an event at last year's APA, where Dr. Phil was the invited PsyChi speaker here at APA. And I got to meet him and invite him, and so did Martha Zlatkovich, who's up here up front, the PsyChi executive director. And I thought it was an event that went really well. I thought the messaging was great. He gave a 1-hour talk and a 1-hour conversation hour. I thought the conversation hour was better, quite honestly. I thought it was really great. Here we are posing for him afterwards. Yes, I've actually met Dr. Phil. There I am with him. Here's the thing. Sometimes you have to take chances and take risks. This was not without risk. For example, there's that. There's that. This is all before the event. After the event, no one posted anything negative. No one complained about it. No one posted anything online negative. No one on Twitter, on Facebook. At least no one forwarded it to me. I didn't see it anywhere. After the event, as I look back on it, I'm still glad we did it. The reasons why we did it, Dr. Phil was a PsyChi member from 1975. He believes in PsyChi. The amount of good that he does for people with mental illness is staggering. But sometimes you have to take chances and stretch your skill set and do what you think is right, even though it might not be perfectly popular with everybody. You have to stand up for what you believe. Sometimes it might come at personal risk. Trust me, this was extremely stressful. After this event, and after everyone cleared out, ask my wife sometime about the phone call. So lessons learned, and those not so much. Like many of you, you might share the same affliction that I do, the inability to say no. A lesson learned, not so much. And so this is a screenshot from my labels in my email. And so I have a new folder called No. And I'm actually trying to track, and I'm actually trying to say no to things. And every time I say no, I am labeling it and saving it so that I can actually kind of train myself and reward myself and go back and say, did I ever say no to anything? Oh, yeah, there were 4 things I actually said no to in 2019. And actually, there's actually more than 4 in there. And I just started this about 2 months ago. But I think we all deal with issues of work-life balance or time management or project management. As you get more and more advanced in your career and you get promotion and tenure and you do things, people come and ask you to do cool things. Will you be on this national thing? Will you lead this thing and that thing? And so the conversation I have with colleagues at home all the time, and sometimes here at things like at APA, this is awesome. You're going to start doing this cool new thing. What are you going to stop doing? Right? So you're going to do this new thing. What are you going to stop doing? That's a lesson that I shouldn't say we all. That's a lesson that I need to learn, right? It's a lesson that I'm still trying, not so much that I've learned, but I'm still working on every day. So someone wants me to write a book chapter. Okay, that's awesome. What am I going to stop doing so I can make time to write that book chapter? How am I going to manage my time to do that? There's only so much sleep you can deprive yourself of. And it's a zero-sum game. All right, so saying no. Something else that I'm still working on that I struggle with, trying to not take myself too seriously. You know, that big fat ego that I carry around. So these are pictures from a Pi for Psychi event that was on my campus some years ago that students enjoyed immensely. As actually some deans and some, actually the current provost did too, as a matter of fact. And so I work on this, I try to work on it a lot. But one of my favorite sayings is something that goes like this. But it really ends up being more like this. And I think Charles Brewer kind of had this kind of same parallel. Trust me, I'm not like Charles Brewer. But I think he had a very similar parallel. When you think about Charles Brewer, very prim and proper man, very, very well respected, immensely respected. These are some pictures that Jane and Randy loaned to me. That's Charles at Furman University with the University Mace leading the processional at commencement. I am sure that as he was looking at that mace, he was criticizing its design. He probably thought the font was too small. He probably didn't care for the wood that was selected for its carving, I'm pretty sure. And I truly mean the text there at the bottom. And if you're old enough, you recognize that as a paraphrase of Lloyd Benson from the debates. But I do like this about Charles Brewer. He also didn't always take himself too overly seriously. And Jane showed this yesterday. You know, the abbreviation for Furman University is FU, of course. There's nothing... that's pretty non-obvious, right? And Charles would, at many times in many places, lead the Furman University cheer. And there's actually been some controversy at Furman at times when they get a new president. Some presidents will and some presidents won't lead the FU cheer, the Furman University cheer publicly. This is actually a litmus test that I've read about it on their website, a litmus test for some presidents, some new hires on their campus. I got to hear Charles lead it a couple of times at the AP reading for psychology. And so I don't have all the verses. I have an abbreviated version. And I'm not going to make you recite it. We recited it yesterday. but the FU cheer goes like that. And it is delight. And to hear him say it in his southern drawl, I don't think I can do it, but I will try. FU one time. FU two times. FU all the time. I don't think I can do that. So that's really all I had planned. I would really love to spend the remaining 13 minutes talking to you about lessons that you've learned. There are people who are in here who have been teaching longer than I have, but there are lessons that I can learn from people who have been teaching less than I have. I have come to learn that mentors can be younger than me. They don't have to always be older than I am. And so I am willing to open it up. I still have some libations left. I was going to say I might share them, but I won't. So what would you like to talk about? We have time. Please, Jen. I guess I keep thinking that the more things I put in there, when something comes along that I say yes to, I'll be able to say I can say yes because there's some no's. I guess that's the way I'm trying to think about it. And it's really it's so hard to say no to your friends. It's incredibly hard. It's incredibly hard to say no to your friends. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, please. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I think the more, to the extent that we're all comfortable sharing who we really are, our not our complete personal personas, but, telling our students why we're doing something. And, to the extent you want to share personal parts of your life. Our students get to know us and trust us and build that rapport. When you tell your students, I have this assignment, it's due in APA format, it's due in 2 weeks, it's the reason why we have this deadline is because we're going to revise and resubmit for another deadline. When you tell them the why, they may not like the deadlines and the structure, but at least they know why you're doing it. And, it might seem harsh at first, but usually by the end of the semester, most people understand why. So I think you're right on, spot on. Yeah. Sharing as much as you're willing to share. Let's get the best view. Sharing Jane, please. That's really sweet of you to say. I think 2 days ago you labeled it grandiosity. That was the inside voice, right? Sorry. That's a great question. I think I got tired of the status quo. I think I got tired of someone telling me, "Oh, we can't do it that way." I keep wanting to publish a certain book. There's a certain book I want to publish, and nobody but will publish it. And I keep telling him, we could self-publish it. We could self-publish it, and he still won't listen to me. And no publisher will touch it very much. And so I guess I get tenacious about it, for lack of a better term. I don't know where it came from. And a bunch of them have failed. Oh, a bunch of them have failed. And I guess I don't trot out the list of failures. Man, that's a really good question. I think I do this. I don't know. I don't know what I do. I think I just keep going. I think it's a good idea, but if no one will buy it, then I just, take the damn pictures. I just keep going. I believe in the idea, but I'm not going to sync with it. Well, first day of class, I give them, let's call it a 1,000-point course. And 1,000-point course, and it's 90, 80, 70, 60. So 900 points is an A, 800 is a B, 700, 600, blah, blah, blah. And I just tell them 900 points is an A, 899 is a B. So 800 to 899 is a B. No fractions, no rounding, no BS, right? and all whole numbers. I just tell them from the first day of class, no extra credit. See, and this is me. These are my lessons learned, and you can do it differently. Now, of course, there's always individual differences, and there's always exceptional circumstances. So you're going to treat people as individuals when they need it, of course. But if you start with the ground rules for everybody and try to be as fair, I mean, there's equity, versus, what's the other one? Equity versus equality, right? So you can treat everyone equally, but then sometimes you give to people what they need. So for me, that tends to work from the very beginning. So then they know, do I go to Starbucks, blow off an assignment, and have it be late and lose the points, or do I get it in and then go to Starbucks? So they know from the very beginning. And then I've been teaching long enough, they talk to other students. Does Landrum really mean that? Yeah, he does. And they know students who got an 899 and they got a B, not a B plus. Yeah, and if you were fair from the beginning and you told everybody, and I've heard everything. I'm going to lose my scholarship. I'm going to lose my scholarship if you give me. You hear that language? If you give me that lower grade, I'm going to lose my scholarship. Really? You had no other grades? No other grades this semester. Mine was your only course. Really? You had no control. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. I don't know if I really said anything to be helpful, but you're welcome. You're welcome. Anybody else? Please. Two things come to my mind. First off, that means you're a good teacher because you care, because it hurts you emotionally. That tells me it's a good sign. Secondly, think about the flip side of it. If you were to overinflate those grades and give them higher grades than they deserved, you would be hurting the university. You'd also be hurting their future employment prospects because they're going to succeed faster. They're going to get higher grades. They're going to think they have better skills than they actually do. They're going to get out in the job market. They're going to interview pretty well. They're going to get a job, and then they're going to fail because they said, I have this skill set, and an employer believed them on an interview, and the teacher, the GPA looked really high. And the teacher might have even written a fairly convincing letter of recommendation. But when the rubber hit the road and the student had to perform, the graduate now had to perform, they didn't have the skills. Because people, it's more than one professor, by the way, a bunch of professors kind of passed them along. They graduated with a degree that didn't mean something. So in the short run, it hurts. In the long run, you're doing your institution and your students a service by being as rigorous as you advertise, in my opinion. And people are willing to disagree with that if they want to. Absolutely. We got a couple more minutes. Yes, please. Sure. That's all the time we have today. Thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate you coming out for the Brewer lecture. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate that. Student evaluation of teaching are one piece of the puzzle. I think administrators, department chairs tend to over-rely on it because it's the easiest low-hanging fruit. I think the data tells us, the researchers tell us from the data that peer observations, classroom observations can be really helpful. If you want diagnostic materials, they're going to actually help people improve. Formative versus summative evaluation types of situations. You can even do things like syllabus review. Review of materials can be really helpful in addition to student evaluations of teaching. And so if you're just taking the low-hanging fruit, it's kind of like garbage in, garbage out. If you're only, and there are quality differences in student evaluation of teaching instruments as well. There's an entire literature on that. So if we want to get the quality, we've got to put the time and the effort in. And some institutions do that and others don't, to be honest. I think maybe we have 30 seconds. One last one. Jen. Yeah, this job's getting harder and harder because of the diversity of our students. And I don't mean just gender diversity. I mean our students are coming from different parts of the world and different ethnic gender diversities. But I mean DACA. I mean blended students in terms of I've just transferred from 6 different universities into your university, and I'm doing this highway learning, right? I'm enrolled in 3 universities right now. I'm one online, one hybrid, and I'm in this brick and mortar. And are we really serving our students where they're at? Or I'm going to make you come to my history and systems that meets once a week, Tuesday, Thursdays, 4 to 7. Sorry, you've got a job. Sorry, come to my class if you want my degree from my university. I think, we've got to get better at serving our students where they're at, where they are developmentally, where they are in their jobs, their lives, their careers, their families. I think that's the part that's going to get more complicated. And we've got to get serious about assessment. There's a pocket of people who are, but if we can't tell our story of why higher ed does a better job, then anybody can come along and say, we do it just like higher ed does it. I think we've got to get better at telling our story. Thank you so much. Thank you.